Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host Gershwan, and today we're going to be talking about another Space Marine chapters as we get into the Blood Drinkers. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you have any suggestions, please comment down below. But with that said, let's get into 40 Facts on the Blood Drinkers. The Blood Drinkers is a loyalist Space Marine chapter and the second founding successor chapter of the Blood Angels. The name Blood Drinker comes from the chapter's craving for blood, the result of a mutated gene seed organ. The Blood Drinker's power armor is painted carnelian red with gold yellow trim. Apothecaries of the Blood Drinkers have the entire right side of their power armor painted white and have a golden yellow vertical stripe painted down their center of their helmet. The Blood Drinker's chapter badge is an ebon chalice with a single black droplet of blood falling into it, denoting their chapter's name, the Blood Drinkers. The Blood Drinkers were founded during the days following the Horus Heresy, during the second founding in the early 31st millennium. This occurred before the grim truth concerning their progenitor, the Blood Angel's flawed gene seed, came to light. Like their fellow successor chapters, the Blood Drinkers are strongly bound to the Blood Angels, united by the blood of their Primarch Sanguinius that flows through their veins, and ancient traditions that outsiders find difficult to understand. Being one of the scions of Sanguinius, their loyalty to the memory of their Primarch transcends all other duties and concerns. Being born from the Blood Angel's gene seed, the Blood Drinkers too carry the flaws inherited in their gene stock. Their predecessors, the Blood Drinkers, are a dying breed, for they suffer from the same dreadful genetic flaw, the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. The Blood Drinkers especially suffer from the Red Thirst, the overwhelming desire to physically taste the enemy's blood. This is more than likely due to the mutation of the chapter's homophagia implant, which causes an insatiable craving for human blood. The homophagia, also called the remembrancer, is the 8th of the 19th genetically engineered gene seed organs that are implanted into the Space Marine neophyte. It allows the Astarte to gain part of the individual person or creature's memory by eating its flesh. Another notable flaw in their gene seed is the mutation of what the chapter refers to as the Weaver, the mucranoid gland, unique to the Blood Drinkers, turning a gift that should have helped to a hindrance. The Blood Drinker's skin glands atrophy, causing the pores to close. This change to the epidermis was not one originally sought by the Emperor when he crafted the gene seed of the Adeptus Astarte. There is no treating it. It is their chapter's own particular quirk of the flaw. Lacking semum, as well as sweat, all bears its mark. The dry, insufficiently nourished skin of the Blood Drinkers. By the 37th millennium, the Blood Drinkers were a dying chapter, brothers succumbing to the Black Rage as soon as they were fully initiated. The hero Saint Polos had set up a journey, disobeying the will of the chapter council to fulfill his quest. Holos had experienced a dream, and after being secretly consulted by the Reclusiarch, Chandra, had set out on this sacred journey to climb Mount Calcium, the mightiest volcanic peak on his chapter's homeworld. As the brave battle brother climbed the nearly insurmountable peak, he battled Lotan, the lord of the Azarage, vile Xenos creatures that infested the mountains. This foul creature was a great monster, 5 times the size of his subjects. 4 great heroes of the chapter had set out to slay him. 4 heroes had died, their war gear and lives lost in his lair. Holos' mind was clear on the matter. This was the only way to the top of the mountain. By the time Holos reached the summit, his armor had been broken by the violence visited upon him by the Astorgai. So damaged was his machine spirit and aiding system that it died, and its weight soon became a burden. What armor Holos could free was thrown off. One of his arms hung uselessly at his side, and his weapons were gone, but Holos' will remained. As Holos lay close to death upon the mountain peak, a winged angelic figure had appeared to him, reviving him at the point of his death and giving him the secret that would enable the Blood Drinkers to keep the thirst at bay, if they dared. Brother Holos had returned solar weeks later to the fortress monastery, long after he had been given up for dead. Celebrations at the hero's return turned to uproar when he revealed what he had been told. What the winged figure proposed nearly tore the chapter in two, but those were desperate days, a time when more and more battle brothers were falling into the Black Rage. With every passing year, the thirst tormented them endlessly. These two events are known in the chapter's history as Holos' return and the Blood Schism. Rather than denying their bloodlust, Holos suggested that the blood drinkers embrace it, making it a central part of many of their rituals. By doing so, the chapter seemed to have achieved an unprecedented level of control over their flaw. It remains to be seen whether or not this is but the first step on a long road of eventual damnation. Despite the unnatural craving for blood that echoes through their soul, the blood drinkers ever aspire to be judged as equals with other chapters of legend. The blood drinkers have since known equilibrium that the other scions of Sanguinius could only pray for. The Rite of Holos is the blood drinkers' greatest secret and their greatest strength. Without it, the chapter would have descended into savagery and been lost. With it, the brothers remain stalwart defenders of the Imperium. The blood drinkers hail from their chapter Homeworld of Sigue, a hot volcanic world crisscrossed with lava rivers as bright as blood. The planet is a literal furnace and virtually uninhabitable, as the extremes of this environment make it deadly for most life forms. Sanguisiga's suns burn exceptionally bright. During the height of daylight hour, the red giant, Crova A, is a baleful presence, washing the world with angry red light. Its white dwarf cousin, Crova B, is a point of light the size of a fingernail, many times smaller but brighter. At certain times of the year, the two suns are close in the sky, with only a handspan between them. Yet for their brightness, the warmth the twin suns provide is negligible. Sanguisiga's ferocious heat is provided by the tidal forces of its large moon, Hemios, pulling at its guts. Churning geology wrecks the planet with endless earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The planet is phenomenally active, its entire surface remade once every 2,000 standard years, sheeted over by fresh rock spewing from many of the volcanoes. The harsh environment provides an ideal recruiting ground for the chapter's neophytes, making the world's population ideal warriors for the blood drinkers. One of the life forms that thrives upon this inhospitable world is known as an astrogai. The origins of these curious creatures is unknown, although there were certain ruins on the moon's surface that hinted that the astrogai might be devolved remnants of a civilized xeno species. But that was hotly disputed by the chapter and the Adeptus Mechanicus. No one was sure if they were truly sentient, or animals keyed into the psychic space of the warp. How many of them there were, where they nested, how they bred, that is all unknown. All that is certain is that they have been on the planet for longer than man, and they have defied every attempt to be exterminated. To the space marines who make this their home, they are a nuisance. To their neophytes, they are deadly. Current Lord of Sanguisiga, and Chapter Master of the Blood Drinkers in the late 41st millennium, is Chapter Master Orlok. He is known to be a pious and respectful space marine. He has not suffered the same curse as the chapter's previous Chapter Master. Before Chapter Master Orlok, the Lord of Sanguisiga and Chapter Master of the Blood Drinkers in the 39th millennium was Chapter Master Cadis. He personally led a large strike force comprised of blood drinkers to fight alongside the Nova Marines chapter in a ferocious assault on a gene stealer infested space hawk called Death of Integrity. During the height of the fighting, the genetic curse known as the Black Rage came upon him, and he was overcome with visions of Brother Holos. During the subsequent fighting, as the blood drinkers' first company cleared their assigned sectors of any gene stealer taint, his senses of reality was obscured by the visions of Holos' trial during his ascent on Mount Calcium. On the edge of perception, Cadis passed through deeper and deeper into the Space Hawk in Holos' fuge. While in his fugue state, Cadis experienced reaching the summit of the volcano and saw the distinct vision of a mysterious entity that his mind could not quite grasp. As he conversed with the mysterious entity that claimed to be his chapter's salvation, a sense of terrible horror gripped him as he realized that it was not an angel that he spoke to, but a demon of chaos. All Space Marines have some knowledge of the ruinous powers. Few among their numbers were fully aware of the Dark God's actual influence on the material universe, or the nature of their servants, or how their servants could manifest themselves. But Cadis knew, for he was a chapter master, and thus the most awful secrets of the universe had been laid open to him. Cadis refused the Demon Lord's offering, willingly suffering the torment of the death of the Black Rage. The Demon Lord warned the chapter master that though he may defer his fate, those like him would continue to follow Holos in his trek up the mountain. They would fight, and they would struggle, and they would come to the Demon Lord once again. Many would say no, but eventually one would say yes. As promised, Cadis did indeed suffer the torment of the Black Rage, his body transforming into a monstrous form. Before the Nova Marines that were there could inquiry on the chapter master's transformation, they were forced to flee, as the sentient death of integrity, the entire ship, transplanted into the warp, taking the mutated chapter master with it. Cadis' ultimate fate is unknown. While the Blood Drinkers appear to have attained a level of control over the Blood Angel's flaw, exceeding even that of their progenitor Legion, such appearances are deceptive. The entirety of the chapter's rituals and observances are based on the consumption of massive quantities of blood, though the source of the blood used in these ceremonies is unknown, as is the form of these rituals. It is assumed that this blood is taken from individual battle brothers, or some sort of slain predator, whose qualities are coveted. Some detractors whisper that this blood is taken unwillingly from captives, fallen enemies, or even from the innocent. The blood drinkers go to great lengths to conceal these blood rites from any and all outsiders, for none have witnessed their sanguinary rites, not even their brethren amongst the Blood Angel successor chapters. They appear to be in control over the flaw. The blood drinkers may have more than likely doomed themselves in some other unforeseen way. Their future remains just as uncertain as that of the remainder of their fellow scions of Sanguinius. The Rite of Holos is the rite that is ritually practiced by the Astartes of the Blood Drinkers chapter. This rite of blood involves the assembly of the battle brothers of the chapter within their individual vessels or fortress monasteries reclusiums that are called the Hall of Life. They stand shoulder to shoulder, dressed in simple scarleted trousers, with black tabards embroiled with the yellow blood drop and chalice of the chapter. The decorated belts they habitually wear, denoting their roles and ranks within the chapter, are absent. Tech Marines stand with the battle brothers, neophytes with initiates, stripping off their badges. All are equal for the rites of Holos. For the duration of the ritual, the matter of their brotherhood is paramount. Distinction of rank or suborder is unimportant, a distraction from the fundamental sameness in the face of the thirst. Only the sanguinary priest and chaplain stand apart, all bearing their mark of office. Crozius and chalice gleaming in the chamber's light, they flank the major portals leading into the main room. 10 sanguinary guards stand behind them, armed and armored, 5 with the chaplain, 5 with the sanguinary priests. Through the use of ritual bloodletting, the chapter serfs willingly offer their precious vitals to their ravenous masters. During the ritual, the battle brothers take their assigned positions in outlying alcoves all along the chamber's wall. The serfs all have thin metal tubing all over them, the ways to their arteries and the fluids that sustain the chapter. From the alcoves, the serfs have their metal tubes connected, draining their precious blood, which flows freely into the channels cut into the floor and poured into the large depression sunk into a granite floor in the center of the chamber. Its shape cut into the blood drop of the chapter. At the narrow end of the drop, an altar soars high. A relief of helmetless armored battle brothers circle it, carved by red carnelian, each one with a skull for his head, bowed over hands clasped around the hilt of a sword and axe. Upon the altar, channels are cut. The channels run from these points together, then as one lead to an apex of a dropped blood. This is where the blood drinkers ritually sacrifice a helpless mortal in the service of the Emperor, the chapter's monstrous price for their ravenous bloodthirst, known as the blood tithe. Later, when the thirst is quenched, the chapter's reclusiarch will lead them in a prayer of atonement, and then for preparation, they will reaffirm their oath to the Emperor and beg forgiveness for one another and their lives they have taken. The Tech Marines will take a measure of blood from the brothers themselves to placate the chapter's weapons and armor. Only then, with the beast inside them tamed, will the brothers' mind turn fully to the battle and the destruction of man's foes. The blood drinkers firmly believe that the blood is the key, and that denial was not the answer. They will not quake before their appetite as their brother chapters do. Though they believe that the monster within them cannot be defeated, it cannot be denied either. They believe that it can be controlled, its strength borrowed, Through these rituals, the blood drinkers believe they have found their salvation from the genetic flaw that raves the scions of Sanguinius. But the truth behind the blood drinkers' supposed salvation is far more insidious. When Brother Holos ascended Mount Calicium and spoke with the angelic vision, some within the chapter believed this to be none other than Primarch Sanguinius, who imparted to his genetic son how to save his dying chapter. However, the truth behind the Rites of Holos is that the brother saint was visited not by an angel, but by a demon. Though the identity of this never-born is unknown, it is highly suspected that it was much likely the demon lord Carios Fateweaver, Tzeentch's vizier, and the first amongst the great conspirators' pantheon of greater demons. Holos made a devil's bargain with the demon lord in exchange for the knowledge of the blood drinker's ritual that would grant his chapter salvation, saving thousands of his chapter's battle brothers from the dark fate of the Death Company. Carios would gain the ability to alter the vision of a selected few Death Company Astartes. Instead of receiving the usual visions of their angelic Primarch's death, they would instead receive visions of Holos and the demon lord himself. The blood drinkers firmly believe that the Black Rage is a blessing, not a curse. Those few great heroes within their chapter granted these visions do not see what other scions of Sanguinius saw. Though there were few who were blessed with these visions, they were believed to be gloriously blessed, while their brothers all saw the cause of their damnation within the death of their Primarch at the hands of Horus. The blood drinkers who were granted these demonic visions witnessed the moment of their supposed salvation, the climb of Brother Holos, and the very thing that set them free. This was what the blood drinkers believed, and among all of the sons of the blood angels, they felt hope. By the 39th millennium, 18 brothers had witnessed these visions, and Carios had spoken to each of these battle brothers through these memories, tempting them with the powers of chaos. If one battle brother even as much as contemplates accepting the demon lord's offering, the blood drinkers will be damned and fall to the ruinous powers. Thus far, all have refused the demon lord's offering, but Fateweaver is patient, waiting for only one battle brother to utter a single yes, and damning the chapter forevermore. Only the chapter's reclusiarch know the truth behind the Rites of Holos, though it is not known if they truly wish for the chapter to fall. Unlike the other Blood Angel successor chapters, the Blood Drinkers are strict followers of the holy rite of the Codex Astartes, and are organized accordingly. From all outward signs, the Blood Drinkers appear to have overcome the worst aspects of the flaw of Sanguinius, and while they still maintain a death company, it appears that far fewer of its battle brothers fall to the Black Rage. In the 887th year of the 39th millennium, the Space Hulk Death of Integrity was seen near the world of Sol Secundus. The ancient ruin had been encountered twice before in recent centuries, each time preceding the appearance of Tyranid forces upon nearby worlds. The general call for immediate Adeptus Astartes assistance was issued, with members of the first company of both the Blood Drinkers and the Nova Marines chapter responding to the call for assistance. Exhibiting a tremendous amount of cooperation, the two chapters deployed nearly 200 Space Marines equipped with Terminator armor to the massive Hulk. Over the course of 2 months, the combined forces thoroughly purged the Space Hulk of a rampant Genestealer infestation. Both chapters suffered losses, as the Xenos were well suited for battle within the cramped and toxic environment. Though the battle was costly in terms of damage to armor and loss of life, the ultimate prize was stunning. Hidden deep within the Hulk's ruin was a remarkably well-preserved standard template construct, which contained data on hosts of lost technologies. The Adeptus Mechanicus gladly accepted this priceless artifact, and went so far as to repay each chapter with a newly commissioned strike cruiser. The Blood Drinkers came to Jericho Reach at the close of the 816th year of the 41st millennium, mere months before the first tendrils of High Fleet Dagon struck the world of Castobel. Some say that the chapter was drawn to Castobel by the scent of blood, the two companies of battle brothers taking up residency in the highest spire of Hive Ibilios and fortifying it. It was not long before the Tyranid struck, and when they did, the Blood Drinkers were ready. The Hive stood firm against the billion-strong horde, the noble, almost blissful battle brothers manning the walls and setting such an example for the Hive militia. It is said that the men sang with joy as they fought, knowing that they could never fail. It was only later that dark rumors began to circulate, despite the best efforts of the militia's commissars and the hive enforcers. Some claim that the Xenos infiltrators were stalking the hives by night, but others spun a far more disturbing yarn. The rumors told of people being dragged screaming from their beds late at night, and the terrible, blood-curdling cries emanating from the spire that the blood drinkers use as their headquarters. Still later, it was said that enforcer patrols found corpses deep in the hive sinks, battered and pulped as if thrown from the greatest height of the spire. None could locate the source of these tales, which many rumor mongers claim was proof in itself that something was afoot. The people of the hive were fighting for their very existence against a foe that might have overwhelmed them months ago, were it not for the heroic deeds of the blood drinkers. And so for now, at least, a few blood-drained corpses, easily blamed on alien stalkers, were the least of their worries. In the year 226 of the 37th millennium, a combined force of blood angels, angels Encarmen, and blood drinkers engaged with traitor forces on the archaeotech world of Hell's Hollow. Though the cultist hosts were swiftly put to death, the attack came too late to prevent their completion of a heretical ritual. The veil was pierced, and a tide of demons spilled through the macro cities of Hell's Hollow. The blood angels and their brethren reacted to this new development with typical encouragement and resolve. The main strength of the strike force was deployed in a series of holding actions, stemming the demonic tide long enough for the Death Company to be hurled against the ritual site itself. Amid an orgy of violence, the black-armored battle brothers slaughtered everything in their path, closing the rift at the price of their own lives. And those were 40 facts on the blood drinkers. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends and thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.